Okay, so we have looked at 2 of these 4 that I wanted to go over so far. So let's just review those real quick. No immigration or emigration, remember that was gene flow. That upsets that equilibrium. Mating is random, we just looked at sexual selection. That upsets that equilibrium. Alright, so 2 out of the 4 taken care of. We're going to move on to now large populations. So we want to know what happens when the population isn't large and why that upsets the equilibrium established by the Hardy Weinberg equation. So when this occurs, we get a population that's overly small. We have something called genetic drift taking place. It says the smaller a sample, the greater the chance and deviation from the predicted result. Now, to put this in simpler terms, this is something to do with probabilities. Right? The smaller the sample you have, the more likely it is that you're not going to get your expected results. Flipping a coin, for example, you would expect that flipping a coin would give you 50% heads and 50% tails because it's a 1-to-1 chance with each of those flips. However, if you only do it 10 times, you could get some crazy results. You could get 7 heads and 3 tails. As you do it more, however, and you increase the sample size, so go up to 100 flips or 1,000 flips, you're going to get closer and closer to that magic number of 50-50. Same thing happens in populations. The smaller the population, the greater chance there is of things that don't follow the predicted result, that don't follow the pattern. Okay, so what genetic drift does then is it reduces genetic variation through losses of alleles. There are changes in alleles that happen more easily because it's such a small population, so chance plays more of a role. We'll add that in, because that is important. Chance plays a bigger role. In those allelic frequencies. So it could happen that just over time, because of chance in this small population, we're going to get a change in allelic frequencies. Even though there's no natural selection occurring, no sexual selection occurring, no immigration or emigration of genes, so no gene flow, just by chance we could see an increase or decrease in specific alleles. Okay, so on to our last one. We've got 1, 2, and 3 taken care of. Now we're on to number 4, the mutations. So again, when equilibrium is established, we will have no mutations. Mutations will throw that equilibrium off. So just a quick review here of what a mutation is. It's a change in the nucleotide sequence of DNA. Remember, this can occur as the DNA is copying itself. It makes an error as it's being transcribed into a protein via the RNA. There can be an error. Or there can be environmental effects, things in the environment like smoke or UV radiation that can change DNA. What happens is if you change DNA in the right place and in the right amount, it could cause new genes and new alleles to arise. And by arise, we don't mean just like appear, but they get formed from the old DNA. So if you have enough new DNA or changes in the DNA, that gene could act differently or that allele could act differently. I just read an interesting article about this that was published just this month in the journal Nature about horse mutations. So I wanted to share that with you. It's about how one gene, one change in a gene, has affected a trait of horses. So we're going to look at that real quick. All right, so the title of this is Horse Gait, so this is how they walk or run, is traced to a single mutation. And I'm going to start and just kind of read through it with you here. says a single gene mutation in horses can endow them with a wider repertoire of gaits, so more different types of gaits. It shows that some seemingly complex physical traits, like how you walk or run, which seems pretty complicated, actually have a simple genetic basis. Also could help shed light on the genes behind movement disorders in humans. Down in the second paragraph now, horses usually have 3 styles of gait: a walk, a trot, and a gallop. But certain breeds can perform extra gaits, such as pacing, in which the legs on one side of the body move together. And then they talk about what types of horses can do that and why that might be helpful to be able to pace. So it describes their research a little bit here. There was a geneticist who studied the genomes, so the DNA of 70 different horses that could perform these extra gaits. So 40 of them could pace, and 30 could perform other kind of extra gaits. The analysis revealed that one mutation, common to all the horses that could pace, in a gene that was called DMRT3, and both copies of the gene in the pacing horse were mutated. So again, one simple little change in the DNA that makes up this particular gene allowed these horses to have a type of walk or a gait that other horses do not have. So again, one tiny little change can affect something really big in the organism. So if you want to read this more, you certainly can. I've got the website up here at the top, so you can check that out if you want to. See right up here. And it's, like I said, just a really elegant example of how one mutation can have a drastic effect on an organism. All right, so back to the slideshow. Okay, so on to the rates. So how often does this actually happen? Mutation rates are low comparatively in animals and plants compared to microorganisms, okay, like bacteria and things like that. Because bacteria reproduce so often, they can double their population in a matter of minutes, they're going to have a greater chance for mutations. But we do see quite a few mutations in us as well. The average is about 1 mutation in every 100,000 genes per generation. And when you think that every time we make a new cell for our body, we have to copy over all of those genes, and how many new cells we've made throughout our lives, that's quite a bit of chance for a mutation to actually occur. All right, so we took care of immigration and emigration, mating is random, large population, and no mutations. So we're going to just quickly run through those again to make sure you understand what takes them away from the equilibrium, and then we'll be done with this presentation. So no immigration or emigration. What removes that equilibrium? Gene flow. You may want to just add this to your original list of these from the previous notes. Mating is random. What takes away that equilibrium? Sexual selection. Okay, large population, what takes us away from that equilibrium? Genetic drift. And then finally, no mutations, what takes us away from equilibrium? Obviously, mutations do. So any of these 4 things, as well as the natural selection we've already discussed previously, can cause a population to disturb its equilibrium, which means it's going to evolve. So if we have gene flow, or sexual selection, or genetic drift, or mutations, or natural selection occurring in a population, we will more than likely see some evolution in that population, or a change in allelic equilibrium.